What's up, guys? Today I'm back to do some matchmaking and predicting the matchups I'm going to matchmake in the welterweight division. As we know, Belal Muhammad is the active champion. He won the belt off of Leon Edwards, and yeah, it was a pretty dominant decision where he out-grappled and just beat up what looked like a sleepy Leon Edwards. Either way, Belal Muhammad was scheduled to fight Shavkat Manov at UFC 310. He got injured. So I want to discuss some of the matchups I'm looking at in the welterweight division, and some of these are already announced, but some of these I just made up. So let's come up with the first one. We got Shavkat Manov versus Ian Garry, tofu versus horse meat. At the end of the day, guys, we can see Ian Garry's physique deteriorating before our eyes. He's just on a vegan diet, and I'm sorry, but I just don't believe you can be like a top-ranked UFC fighter as a vegan. Nate Diaz was a vegan. He was a journeyman, lost so many times, always had a soft physique. And you literally see Ian Garry getting smaller every single fight. And I just think a guy like Shavkat is going to bully him in the clinch and win a submission. I literally think Shavkat will win this fight just literally off of strength. But not to say he's not skilled. He has 18 fights, 18 finishes. At the end of the day, I think this fight's going to go down as this. I think Ian Garry is going to have good moments in the striking where people are like, man, how Ian Garry's looking good. Shavkat's looking like he's struggling. But eventually, Shavkat's going to have his way, and I can see maybe like a round 3. Is this fight 5 rounds? I'm not sure. I'm going to assume it is. I can see like a round 3, round 4 TKO or a submission for Shavkat. Like I said, I just think Ian Garry, he doesn't really have any punching power. He's got a head kick finish over D-Rod, but outside of that, he's not really finishing guys. Outside of his first couple fights in the UFC, which when he wasn't on a vegan diet, by the way. But since he's been on this vegan diet, he's been less impressive. I mean, bro couldn't even finish Neil Magny. And Neil Magny in recent times have been getting finished by Michael Morales, by Carlos Prates. So I think that Shavkat Manov is going to take Ian Garry's O. And yeah, he's going to go on to fight Belal Muhammad, which is the fight to make. Because whoever wins this fight obviously deserves to fight for the title. Ian Garry's 8-0 in the UFC. I think Shavkat's 6-0 or 7-0. So yeah, this is a good fight. Either way, I'm excited to see it. I will be picking Shavkat by submission. And yeah, the champ Belal Muhammad, he's injured. Scheduled to fight Shavkat at UFC 310 originally. He had to pull out. He had like an infection, a bone infection in his toe. Posted some picture of it. It's pretty disgusting. Listen, I dunk on Belal a lot, but respect to him for signing the fight to fight Shavkat. I know he got injured, but I still think that's the matchup to make. I do think Shavkat's going to beat Ian Garry, as I just explained. And you put that fight right back together, maybe like March, April of next year, depending on how much damage Shavkat takes. I don't think he's going to take much. It's Ian Garry eating tofu. Come on, guys. But either way, book at UFC, Shavkat versus Belal Muhammad early next year after Shavkat beats up Ian Garry. Let's get on to the next matchup confirmed. We got Buckley versus Colby Covington. Now, Joaquin Buckley, I consider this guy the dark horse of the welterweight division. He was a middleweight, and he struggled at middleweight, you know? He got knocked out a few times. He just was not a very big guy at middleweight. He's cutting down to welterweight, and that causes him not to give up so much size. And in return, he's looked great. He's 5-0 at welterweight, and he's been out wrestling guys more, like using his wrestling and to combine it with his striking against like a Wonder Boy. He struggled to get to Wonder Boy that entire fight, but eventually he did get Wonder Boy down in moments and eventually secured a 3rd round knockout. He knocked out Wonder Boy on the feet. Even at 41, knocking out Wonder Boy says something. Joaquin Buckley has power. He's dangerous. He's always been able to have an ability to KO his opponent on the feet. And listen, man, Colby, a lot of people don't know this, but Colby's 36. He's going to be 37 in February. Colby's not a young guy anymore, and he looked awful in the Leon fight. You can blame it on a foot injury or whatever you want, but at the end of the day, this guy doesn't fight very often. And at nearly 37 years old, I can't pick Colby Covington anymore. He's at the poker table. He's hanging out in Miami at steakhouses. The guy's not training like a madman like he used to. Sure, he'll always have great cardio, but I've got to go with Joaquin Buckley, who's on a roll at welterweight right now, 5-0 in that division. And Colby Covington at this point is washed, in my opinion. With that being said, respect to Colby. He's finally fighting a contender and not waiting out 10 years for a title shot. So you got to respect that to some degree. Either way, I look forward to this matchup. Maybe Colby does look like vintage Colby. If he does, maybe he can get the win over Joaquin Buckley and just out-wrestle him and out-position him. But I'll pick Buckley by a 2nd round KO in that fight just because Colby's just not the same guy. Let's move on to the next matchup I want to see well, not that I want to see. This fight is actually confirmed. Now, originally, it was supposed to be Vicente Luque versus Nick Diaz. But as you guys know, Nick Diaz got pulled from the fight. I think we all know why. Videos surfacing online. The dude's battling drug addiction. So I hope Nick Diaz gets the help he needs. Either way, Vicente Luque versus Themba Gorimbo. I think Themba is 5-1 in the UFC. He lost his debut maybe, and he's on a 5-fight win streak. Now listen, guys, I cannot pick Vicente Luque against anybody in the UFC anymore. That Joaquin Buckley fight was sad to watch. He literally just shelled up on the ground and let himself get TKO'd. I don't know what else to say about Vicente Luque. Feels bad, man. I wish he'd have retired after the brain injury against Jeff Neal. Ever since he came back from that, he has not been that same killer. Man, how good was Vicente Luque back in the day? Just a scary guy. He KO'd Belal Muhammad back in the day. People don't know that. Just was one of the most savage fighters in the welterweight division, and he's just not that guy anymore. And Themba Gorimbo, he's not the most amazing prospect ever. He's also like 33, but he's good. Themba, the Rock's favorite fighter, as you guys know. I think he's going to get it done against Vicente Luque. I think Luque is tough enough to maybe last to the bell against Themba. I don't think Themba's like a finishing machine, but yeah, I'm going to pick Themba by a 30-27 decision. I think he'll just outwork and outstrike Vicente Luque, who I don't consider dangerous anymore. He just seems like he kind of gives up and, yeah, accepts his fate, man. It's sad to see because Vicente Luque at one point was one of my favorite fighters to watch. The Silent Assassin, one of the most underrated nicknames in the division, guys. Let's move on to the next matchup that I actually want to see. This one's not booked. The rest of these are not booked. They're just made up by me. Leon Edwards versus Shawn Brady. Now, this needs to be the fight main event of Apex. Both of these guys are snooze fighters. You already know Shawn Brady's just trying to take you down, get the body triangle, and submit you. And you already know Leon Edwards fights to the level of his competition. One of the most frustrating things about Leon Edwards is he seems to fight as well as the other guy is. Like, I don't know, it's weird. Like, what happened to Leon Edwards, man? Like, in the Belal fight, he showed in the 5th round he could get on top of Belal, rain down elbows. Where was that the entire fight? No, he just decided to lose a pitter-pat decision against Belal and get out-grappled. Either way, Shawn Brady versus Leon Edwards, who would I pick for this fight? Honestly, I think Leon has good enough wrestling to keep this on the feet, and Shawn Brady's not the greatest. He's an amazing jiu-jitsu artist, but he's not the greatest wrestler to get the fight to the ground. I could see I could see Leon Edwards just piecing him up on the feet and winning like a dominant 30-27 decision. Shawn Brady's been exposed on the feet once against Belal Muhammad, and if Belal can expose your striking, I think Leon Edwards can too. Listen, also, guys, let's mention, where's Leon Edwards? Why is he not booking fights? This is why this guy was not an exciting champion. He already got in a bad personality, right? Not the most exciting guy on the mic. His fight style's a little boring. Bro, at least give us like 4 or 5 fights a year. Leon is one of the most inactive welterweights there is. This guy wasted more than half his prime just sitting out. He's 33. He's going to be 34 next year. Dude, you need to be fighting. Make some money, Leon. We want to see you back. Let's see you grinding to get that belt back. Dude's way too comfortable. Maybe he made a lot of money. He doesn't want to fight as much anymore. Respect to him. Either way, let's see this matchup. I'll pick Leon to win 30-27 decision. Let's move on to the next matchup I'd like to see. Kamar Usman versus Jack Della Maddalena. I think this card was rumored for UFC 312 in Australia. Booked this UFC. Same thing with freaking Kamar Usman. He fought Khamzat Chimaev on short notice like a year ago and hasn't fought since. Why is Kamaru sitting out? We all know he has the wobbly cobblestone knees at 37 years old, and I think he's going to be needing a wheelchair to get to the octagon at this point. But listen, man, JDM, I think he's 28 years old. He's on like a 16, 17 fight win streak. His only hiccup in the UFC is he looked a little rough against Basel Hafez that was taken on short notice by Basel Hafez. But outside of that, man, JDM's looked damn good. He just pretty much destroyed Gilbert Burns months ago, and he looked great in that fight. Even showed some good grappling against Gilbert Burns, and it ended up finishing him on the ground. I know that Gilbert Burns held his own in the early rounds and arguably won some rounds against JDM, but listen, JDM finished him in the 3rd round at the end of the day. He looked great in that fight. And honestly, guys, hot take, I'd pick JDM to finish Usman. At the end of the day, Usman's not some jiu-jitsu artist, so it's not like he's going to take down JDM and submit him. Maybe he can take him down and bully him on the ground like he's done, but Usman's only getting older. His knees are only cracking more every time he stands up. So, I mean, this guy is literally on borrowed time. Father Time's catching up to Usman, and I know he looked good in the Khamzat fight, but that was over a year ago. He's a year older now. His recovery and his injuries are going to get worse, and his injuries are going to get more often. So I got to pick JDM by knockout in this fight, probably like a 2nd round knockout against Kamar Usman. And I think Kamar Usman should retire soon. Listen, you went on one of the longest win streaks in the welterweight division. You're 37. You're already taking a brutal knockout. Maybe there's money to be made. I know people are going to be calling me a casual saying, dude, Kamaru should retire. Like, listen, man, I don't like these fighters fighting into their late 30s. Like, bro, Kamar Usman's been fighting for a long time. Hang it up, brother. You had a great career. Second best welterweight of all time behind GSP. I mean, what else is there to say? Kamaru Usman, but if he wins, maybe he can go on another title run. Who knows? But I picked JDM by second round KO, boxing Kamaru up. Let's move on to another matchup I'd like to see. We got Gilbert Burns versus Carlos Prates. Now, I accidentally made a mistake and put Carlos Prates as the number 1 contender. He's not. It's number 8 versus number 14. Carlos Prates, the best chain smoker in the UFC, the rookie of the year in the UFC. This guy had 4 UFC fights with 4 KOs. That is super impressive. And if you can't take this guy down, he is going to be super dangerous for anybody because this guy legit has one-punch knockout power in the welterweight division. He just knocked out Neil Magny one punch, out cold. And that punch didn't even land clean. It landed on like the side of Neil Magny's temple, but not the cleanest shot. But Neil Magny went out, man. And Burns didn't look great in his last fight against Brady. He looked flat. He struggled. And yeah, man, Burns is 38 now. Carlos Prates is like 30, 31, entering his prime. I think Carlos Prates is going to KO Gilbert Burns if they fight. I think this is the fight to make. Gilbert Burns, he's been losing a lot. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, so he needs to fight an up-and-comer, hold his spot in the rankings, sink or swim. This isn't a young man's game, so it's time for Gilbert Burns to give another young guy a chance to come up, and Carlos Prates has earned it. 4 first-round finishes, not first round, 4 finishes in 2024 for Carlos Prates, which is insane in the UFC. Bro is off to a hot start, so yeah, book this matchup. I picked Carlos Prates by a first-round KO, if I'm being honest. I think Burns is washed. He's a shell of himself, guys, and I think Burns' time is up. And yeah, maybe Burns should retire soon, too. Or maybe he should look to, I don't know, fun fights. I don't know. Either way, respect to Burns for giving us that barn burner of a fight with Hamzat back in 2022. But the guy's washed. He's like 38 as well, so I'd like to see him retire soon, especially with the way he looked in his last fight. So book this fight, UFC, Carlos Prates by a second-round KO. Or no, first-round KO. Let's go to the next matchup I'd like to see, guys. Stephen Thompson versus Michael Venom Page. Now, this is a striker's delight. 2 of the best karate fighters in the UFC. And listen, I know Wonder Boy's 1-4 in his last 5, and Michael Page got out-grappled by Ian Gary in his last fight. But listen, they're both old heads. Michael Page is 37. Stephen Thompson's 41. I think this is a good fight to put together. And honestly, man, people are claiming it's going to be boring. Even Stephen Thompson said this fight might be boring. Hey, man, you never know. We might get an absolute banger. But I would pick Michael Page, man. I'm sorry. I can't pick Wonder Boy, who's 1-4 in his last 5. Father Time is undefeated, guys. And Wonder Boy fighting until he's 41 now. And he's been KO'd a couple times by Pettis and now by Buckley. And he's taken a lot of damage over the years, man. And I know Wonder Boy looked vintage against Kevin Holland maybe like a year and a half ago. But Wonder Boy's just not that same guy. And honestly, I think Michael Page still holds on to his speed. He still looks fast. And Wonder Boy's speed ain't what it used to be. He's an old man now. You can see the grays in his hair. So I would pick Michael Venom Page. I wouldn't pick Michael Page to KO him. I'd pick him probably by like a decision. Maybe it's like a 29-28 to Michael Page. And maybe people call it a snoozer of a fight. But maybe it's entertaining. Who knows? Either way, book this fight, UFC, Striker's Delight, Michael Venom Page versus Stephen Wonder Woman with the Karate Van Thompson. Nah, I'm kidding. Respect to Wonder Boy. Let's move on to the last matchup I'd like to see, boys. We got Jeff Neal versus Michael Morales. Now, Jeff Neal's coming off that first-round TKO against RDA where RDA blew his knee out. But Jeff Neal was looking good in that fight. I think he would have went on to KO RDA. But listen, man, Jeff Neal has struggled to be a consistent fighter. Sometimes Jeff Neal looks like the best fighter in the welterweight division, like he can go on and be the champion. And then the next fight, you're like, dude, he's losing to Neil Magny. So it's like, what is Jeff Neal doing, you know? Why is he so inconsistent? Why does sometimes he look like a world beater, other times he looks like a can? Who knows? Michael Morales is 5-0 in the UFC with 3 finishes, I believe. So I think this is a great matchup to make. They're right next to each other in the rankings. And like I said, it's not like Jeff Neal's on this crazy win streak where he deserves a jump up. Maybe you give Jeff Neal the up-and-comer. If he stops the hype train of Michael Morales, then you can have Jeff Neal start looking up to the upper half of the division, where I think Jeff Neal could win this fight. Listen, Michael Morales is dangerous, but Jeff Neal, if he's switched on, man, he's one of the best fighters in the welterweight division. I think that this would be a stand-up fight, and who knows, man, they both have power. I'm not sure who I predict to win. I'm actually not going to put a prediction on this fight because I think it's so close. I just don't know who's going to win. So that's the matchups I'd make in the welterweight division, guys. There's already 3 confirmed that I talked about, but hopefully the UFC makes some of these matchups. I think these are absolute bangers. Let me know what you guys think in the comment. And as always, thank you guys so much recently for the support on the channel. You can now become a member to support the channel. Drop a like if you enjoy the content, guys. Drop a sub, drop a comment, drop your pants if you're on the toilet. I'm not sure, guys. Have a good one. I'm out. Peace.